Welcome, everybody, to the Dynasty 365 show here at Fantasy and Frames. I'm your host, Stacey Perez. He is the lovely and talented Mr. Jorge Edwards. Guys, we are here tonight to help walk you through the Bimageddon, Apocalypse, Week 7, whatever it is you're calling it. We are here to help. Let's do it. What is up, everybody? Jorge, how has your week been going?
Week's been going really well. Licking my wounds here from last week. I feel like with all the injuries that all my fantasy teams have been exposed to, it was a rough week, but we're on the upward trajectory, hopefully, and excited to be here with you talking some Dynasty.
Yeah, I mean, after this week's bye weeks, it only gets bad again, like really bad, like week 13. So we got a few weeks to, kind of get over it a little bit.
Yeah.
A little bit. If you make it through week 7, I guess, right?
Right. That's the big one.
Gotta make it through week 7 first. We are here to help you make it through week 7. Albert, we see you in the chat. Hello. Guys, if you are in the chat tonight, make sure that you throw us some questions. We will do our best to get to them. We want to see, the chat was just absolutely jumping last week, so we want to see everybody back in there tonight as well. Jorge, what was your favorite part or the best week for you, or the best part of week 6 for you?
So what was really cool to see was from the ashes of the wasteland of the tight end position, a hero emerged that was probably on your league's waiver wire. Maybe not. Well, maybe another way. In your redraft waiver wire, definitely. In your dynasty, you probably grabbed him because of the hype coming out of the draft from Notre Dame. Michael Mayer, tight end, Las Vegas Raiders. Last week, he was PFF's number 1 graded tight end. He played 20% of the total snaps at the position. As far as tight ends, he was second in receiving yards, second in yards after the catch. He was tied with Travis Kelce in NFL passer rating when targeted. As far as on the team is concerned, he was second in the team's receiving target share, right behind Jacoby Myers. His contested catch percentage was fantastic. He was like one of the main focal points of this Raiders passing game. Hopefully you all went over to fantasyframes.com on Tuesday. I read one of our writers, Kyle. He put out his waiver wire article, and Michael Mayer was definitely right at the top of the tight end list of somebody that you should have put in a bid for or put a waiver claim for, because, Josh McDaniels, he's starting to realize, hey, I drafted this guy, in the second round? Maybe I should start utilizing him more.
Well, he does have the second best jawline on the Las Vegas Raiders. We all know who has the best. We don't even need to say it.
Exactly. Yep, no, I got you.
Well, I have a question for you about the illustrious Mr. Michael Mayer. I want to know, is he going to cut into Davante Adams' target share? Because I have him in a few leagues. In the last couple of weeks, I haven't really been too thrilled with his production.
So, awesome question. So here are my thoughts on that. Davante Adams is Davante Adams. He's a stud wide receiver. Obviously you're going to be playing him regardless. So I think it's a matter of now of what are our thoughts as far as tempering expectations or not to. You go back to the past 2 matchups versus Green Bay, which allow the second lowest receiving yards to opposing teams on the season. You go to then last week versus New England, allow the 12th fewest. I mean, it's not a coincidence that, LaFleur and Belichick are let's take away Las Vegas's best weapon, right? And that just opened up more opportunity for Jacoby Myers and Michael Mayer to be, utilized more in this offense. However, as far as target share, I mean, I'm sure the more you're spreading the ball around to different players, your target share is going to take a dip. But I think for fantasy managers, you have to think about it from the matchup or upcoming matchups. You look at next week. Or is it this week or next week against Chicago? The next 3 matchups. Yeah. Chicago is 15th in points per game to receivers, which is not elite, but it's okay. But they give up the 9th most to tight ends. You look at Detroit next, 13 points per game to wide receivers, 7th to tight ends, and then it's not until you get to the New York Giants, which the Giants have the better receiver matchup in points per game average versus than the tight ends do. So at least for the next couple weeks, you may actually see Mayer, targeted a little bit more there. But that's not to say Devontae Adams can't take 1 or 2 targets and take it to the house and, be Devontae Adams, right? But I think as these are words I never thought I was going to say a few weeks ago. This Raiders offense, with Josh Jacobs kind of getting back into his groove, both as a receiving option as well as a rusher, the utilization that's been established with Jacoby Myers and Devontae Adams, and now you're throwing in Michael Mayer into this passing game. This offense is slowly but surely turning a corner here. And, for people, again, who are suffering in the tight end wasteland, this could be your diamond in the rough here this season.
Yeah, absolutely. Preston, we see you in the chat over there. Good evening, Creative. Rough waiver week. He didn't get Zach Evans anywhere. He was disgusted. Good news, Myles Gaskin and Royce Freeman are probably still out there for you. So you could go grab them if you wanted to continue to be disgusted. But you got him some places in Dynasty. So that is the silver lining for you there. Guys, remember, if you have questions for us tonight, put them in the chat. We will absolutely get to them. My favorite thing about week 6. So I took a pessimistic route here, and I said the worst thing about week 6 was that my fantasy football partner, Jim, and I picked up Chris Brooks everywhere from my running back from Miami last week, thinking, he's going to make us look like geniuses this week, right? Because it's going to get so out of hand, towards the end, they're not going to play Mostert as much. They're going to put some other guys in there. And sure enough, they did. They put Brooks in. And I swear to you guys, just as I like look at the TV and I'm like, oh, Chris Brooks is in the game. This is awesome. I see him marching down the field. I'm like, oh my God, Chris Brooks is going to get a touchdown. I'm going to look like a complete genius here. He gets hurt with an ankle issue. And I just, eat it, the FML, guys, come on, my goodness. Gosh, that was, I'm going to say that was the worst part of week 6 for me. But one of the best things that I saw in week 6 was, I'm in Tampa, so I get a lot of the local games, right? So I was watching the Bucks Lions game, and of course I'm watching because I've got Laporta, my beloved Sam Laporta, Sun God on there too. And out of nowhere comes Craig Reynolds with this amazing block to get Sun God in the end zone. That was just fantastic. I don't know how many times I've watched that replay. That was so good. I loved it.
You're the second person to talk about it, and I've seen the tweet about the block. I have yet to actually go on YouTube and watch this thing, but everyone keeps saying, just like you are, this was the mother of all blocks to free up.
Oh yeah. Just out, you're watching it and off the corner of the screen, whoop, here comes Craig Reynolds, right across. And I don't even know which defender it was for the Bucks, but took him off his feet, just took him right out. So it was great. And then you see on the sidelines how hyped up Amon-Ra St. Brown was. They were he and Craig Reynolds were just going crazy. And you can just tell that Lions team, those guys are so bought in, and Dan Campbell has just completely changed that culture there. I'm just so, and as a Packer fan, right, it kind of kills me a little bit, but they are so much fun to watch, such an exciting team. I'm kind of rooting for the Lions a little bit over here. I don't know how I feel about it.
I mean, if your fantasy teams have a lot of Lions on it, you're rooting for them a lot, right?
Yeah, and mine, yes, and mine do.
Well, it's crazy. We're a couple seasons ago. Dan Campbell's being introduced into his press conference, and he's talking about biting kneecaps, and everybody's like, oh, "This guy is, doesn't have a brain. Is just a jock who's been handed the keys to a franchise. He doesn't know anything about being a coach and." Blah blah blah, and then you get to Hard Knocks last year, and it's all right, I can. If anything, I have respect for the guy. I'll run through a wall through the guy because he's very inspiring. And then you see what they've been doing. I think they said since last, and I could be completely wrong on the graphic they showed in the game, that up until week 8, only 4 teams have been 12-5 or something, some type of double digit winning record. And one of those teams being the Detroit Lions. So This is a fun team to watch. I'll tell you that.
I love it. And guys, if you came for the Craig Reynolds content, we will not disappoint you because I'm going to get to that in just a little bit. But before we do that, we're going to talk about our booms and our bust from week 6. So Jorge, who is on deck for you?
Well, let's just keep this Detroit Lions fan fest, love fest going. It doesn't get more boom than second-year wide receiver Jameson Williams on a 53-yard touchdown pass in the end zone versus the Bucs on Sunday. He had 2 receptions the entire game. One was for no yardage. The other one was that, again, 53-yard touchdown pass. You look back to when he came back from injury last year. He had a very similar scenario where he caught a long touchdown pass, and then he was pretty much silent for the rest of the season. It makes me wonder what his role is going to be. Is he going to be typecasted into just a deep threat wide receiver? He missed some time due to the gambling, although they curtailed that by like a couple games or a game.
So yeah.
So it's going to be interesting to see what his upside is there, if he is going to be a boom or bust player going forward. But if you have your best ball shares there, it's fantastic. For Dynasty, you know what? For Dynasty, I don't know what to think. And again, it goes back to this whole boom bust role here. Obviously we'll know more as far as how to assess his value as we get closer to the end of the season. But for those Dynasty managers who are, maybe they're non-contention, but they're not yet thinking about rebuild, but they want that extra spark on their roster of a player that can give them some high upside. Or maybe you're in contention and you have extra roster space and you want somebody that can fill in for you during a bye that has high upside, maybe go out and get Jameson Williams. There are various scenarios for dynasty purposes why you'd want to go get this guy, but I don't know whether or not I would personally invest too much, just because I don't know about whether or not they're going to typecast him as just the deep threat, one-off type of guy every so often.
Yeah. All right. Well, we have a question real quick before we get to your bust. So George Play 01 wants to know, he is 6-0. His team has Tua, CMC, Ken Walker. All right, yeah. Ken Walker. It's so funny. I say Ken Walker, and I see his government name there, Kenneth, and I was like, wait a minute, is that the same one? Cup, Olave, Goddard, and a flex in James Cook. He wants to know if he should trade Olave. There's a second part to this question. There we go. Should he trade Olave and Cook for Ja'Marr Chase? And also, should he start Zach Evans instead of CMC, knowing that he may not play? Let's take the trade part first, and then we can tackle the start sit with Evans and CMC. Man, that's a great. No wonder you're 6-0, George. Good grief! Like that's a stacked team right there. All right. So should you trade Olave and James Cook for Chase? You've got Cooper Kupp. Okay. So who are your other receivers? I mean, I guess you would have Cup and Ja'Marr Chase is who you would have. I don't know. What do you think, Jorge? I mean, that's obviously an upgrade from Olave.
Yeah. See, first of all, I think I'm just going to call him Jorge Play 01. So you're welcome there, George. But I mean, Ja'Marr Chase is the upgrade. He has the better quarterback situation. He has, in theory, the better offense, even though the Bengals have been having a slow start to the season. I still believe in Chase's upside. Cook, let's talk about James Cook for a second. There are reports that Leonard Fournette may be going to Buffalo to try out. What does that tell you? They bring in Latavius Murray. They're contemplating bringing in Leonard Fournette. You could tell me, oh, well, they're just depth pieces because David Harris, who I was very glad to see that his injury on Sunday Night Football was not worse, but it was still pretty scary to watch, I would make that trade. I just trust the Bengals offense more. I'll tell you what. I would make that trade if you're in contention and you want the win now. But if you're building for, from the ground up, I may want to have Cup go get Chase and maybe a second or a first round draft pick and build up that way and kind of offload Cooper Kupp just because he is getting up there in age. And then you would have Olave and Chase plus some extra draft capital to go out and get you a wide receiver in your rookie drafts next year, or maybe package that for a wide receiver too with your other league mates.
So here's the rest of that. So on his bench, he's got Deontay Johnson, Jamison Williams, Tank Dell, JSN, Warren, Roshan, and Zach Evans. Good again, Jorge play 01. My gosh. That's again, yeah. This is a great team. I like Jorge. I like what you said. I like kind of seeing if you can offload Cup as opposed to Olave, who's a lot younger. Because I'm assuming this is Dynasty. George, you can let us know if this is redraft or Dynasty, but we're gonna go with the assumption that it's Dynasty because it's Wednesday night and we are Dynasty 365. So, yeah, I think I like that. Why don't? Yeah, I like that, Jorge. That was a good call. Doing a little switcheroo there with Cup and instead of Olave.
It's redraft. Okay.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that changes it. Then I would changes it in the sense of like I would trade Olave and Cook for Chase. I wouldn't get rid of Cooper Kupp just because we've seen what Cooper Kupp has done two games in to being back from injury. So
yeah, for sure. I am on board with that. All right. Second part of his question is, should he start Zach Evans over CMC, knowing that there is that oblique injury that CMC's got? We're not really sure what's going on with him. That is a Monday night game. So, of course, we're not going to know his status until, as late as can be. So you've got Kenneth Walker. You've got on your bench Roshan. You've got Jalen Warren. Other options there. I don't know. How do you feel about Zach Evans this week, Jorge? Because I don't know that I'm super excited about him.
Well, they brought in Darrell Henderson yesterday, a familiar face to the Rams backfield.
I was forgetting Darrell Henderson. Thank you.
But even though he had been with the Rams for for years, up until I think this year, right?
Mm-hmm.
Should I start Zach Evans instead of CMC? Well, see, the Rams play at 4:05, 4:15. So you may be able to actually find that answer out as you get closer to kickoff for the Rams game on Sunday.
Oh no, Rams are 1:00.
What? Damn it! That's
wait. Hang on. Oh no, I'm sorry. I was looking ahead at week 8 for I'm so sorry.
There you go. Yeah, so 4:05 versus Pittsburgh. Yeah.
Yes, there we go.
So something tells me, Adam Schefter and his midnight tweets will tell you on Sunday morning, hey, word is Christian McCaffrey is going to play with the oblique strain, so you should be good there. That being the case, I mean, man, should you start Zach Evans? I don't know if you have a choice but to start Zach Evans. It depends on how many running back spots you have on your roster, how many flex spots you have. I like Roshan if he's playing. Yeah, I mean, should you start Zach Evans? He has the matchup versus Pittsburgh.
And the Steelers have given up quite a few points to running backs this year on average. So there's that. I was going to say Jalen Warren. I'm a big Jalen Warren fan.
Oh yeah,
for sure. And he's great. If this is PPR, George, I'm not sure if it is or not, but he is fantastic. In the passing game too, they use him a little bit more than Najee there. So if it were me, I don't know. I think there's too many question marks with Zach Evans, just given the fact that there's so many other names there too. Right. I would be tempted to either do Roshan or Jalen Warren instead if it looked like CMC wasn't going to go.
Right. That's a good call. I agree.
Yeah.
Thanks, George.
Jorge. Thank you, George/Jorge, for getting on in there in the chat. If you have questions, just like Jorge did, throw them on in there, and we will, like I said, make sure to get to them. But Jorge, who is your sad bust player for this week?
So he was coming off of a 90 total yard performance in week 5, 4 receptions. And I was talking, of course, about Kendre Miller, running back, New Orleans Saints, except on Sunday versus the Texans, only 13 yards receiving on 2 targets. Really disappointing. You kind of were hoping at this point, especially for this game, right? Because it was so out of hand at a certain point that you would have thought that they would be throwing the ball more, getting Kendra Miller more involved in the passing game, kind of playing a little catch up there, garbage time points, whatever you want to call it. And it basically became the Kamara funnel, where basically Alvin Kamara got all the attempts, got all the targets at the running back position. And that was not really encouraging. And now we have Jamal Williams potentially being activated this week. What does that do to Kendra Miller? That sucks. That sucks for the dynasty managers who are like, yes, this is what I've been waiting for. This is the choice matchup this week. We saw him coexist with Kamara the week before. Let's do this. Oh, they're down by like 15 points. All right, yeah, fantastic. Let's go. Let's go have some fun. And it just didn't pan out, so it sucks. It was a big bust.
Yeah. And I'm going to need you to refer to Jamal Williams by his
Swag
name.
Daddy.
Swag Daddy, please. Thank you. Just to clarify, who Swag Daddy. All right. So my boom is, and I don't know if I'm going to call this qualify enough as a boom, but something that I just thought was pretty cool about a player that I was really impressed with, in the going into the draft and then, his landing spot. That would be Andre Yoshivas from the Bengals, wide receiver out of Princeton. If you guys remember, we talked about him way back when we were covering all the receivers that were coming out in the draft this year. Pentathlete out of, like I said, out of Princeton. He is originally from Hawaii. He got his very first touchdown on Sunday on his birthday, which was the coolest thing. They've kind of been putting him in, he's been out on the field a lot, hasn't gotten a ton of looks. But I think it's something really encouraging and something maybe to kind of keep an eye out for, for future, maybe next season when we're not so sure what's going on with Tyler Boyd. We don't really know, where T. Higgins is going to end up, if he's going to stay or not, so if you've got Yoshivas on your bench, you're probably not using him now. But just somebody to kind of think of as a deep, deep stash. Also, very fun fact, the last Bengal to score a touchdown on their birthday. Anybody in the chat, if you know, put it in there. Let's see. Jorge, don't look at the show sheet. Did you look at the show sheet earlier? Do you know who it is?
I'm just going to make up some. Corey Dillon, the last Bengal.
Oh, throwback. That's a deep cut. No Corey Dillon. It was Andrew Whitworth. In 2010 was the last Bengal to score a touchdown on their birthday. Like I said, deep stash guy. Seems to really have kind of like fit in very well into that locker room, really kind of gelled with the guys. Like I saw a TikTok post this week of the team celebrating his birthday with him. And they were all wearing leis and somebody brought him this like authentic Hawaiian coconut cake that he liked. And I just thought that was really cool because I was like, here's this rookie coming in, and they're like it looks like they're making him feel like such a big part of the team. So if you, got him stashed on your dynasty bench, good news for the future for you. So
that's a good call. And you hit the nail right on the head. We don't know what's happening with T. Higgins. How many years is Tyler Boyd still going to be there? There's a lot of ifs, ands, or buts about the passing game or the receiving game for this Bengals offense. That's pretty awesome. And that's, by the way, on TikTok. If you're not following Fantasy and Frames on TikTok, please do. We really appreciate all the views that you all are giving us there. We love that platform. So just letting you know.
I made my first TikTok this weekend, Jorge.
You did?
I did. I made my very first TikTok ever. I was very excited. I did the ghost dog trend.
I want to do that.
What I'm talking about?
Yeah, right? You cut out the holes in the blanket.
Yeah, you cut out the holes in the blanket and a little sheet or something, a little white sheet you put on your dog. And there's this like catchy little tune that goes along with it. God, I sounded like such an old lady when I just said that. But anyway, it was really funny. I did it. I was babysitting my mom's Maltese while she was out of town. And I took advantage and I dressed him up.
Nice. That's awesome.
So dipping my toes into the TikTok waters. Gator J is in the house. He loves this duo. We love you too, Gator. We miss you. I wasn't on the pregame show on Sunday. I feel like it's been forever since I've seen Gator. So I'm gonna have to jump in on Sunday.
Well, it's interesting for those of you who tuned in last night. So that we brought back the waiver wire show last night. We missed last week. This week we came back and we have a new guy, Zach, from Going for Two. He's now going to be joining Gator every Tuesday for the waiver wire show. So, if you don't catch him on the pregame show, you can always catch him on Tuesdays.
Nice. All right. So my bust this week, I'm not saying it with the Italian accent because it was so bad. Amari DiMercato, Man, like Jorge, did you have any idea that it was going to be a Damian Williams game going into last week?
I I spent so much, Stacy. I
Oh,
was so
I know. I feel like we need to just pour one out for everybody's fab budgets because mine got blown for
I
sure.
I was so desperate. I had no choice,
Yeah,
and now I have nothing. Nothing.
nothing. Nothing.
No fantasy points, no fab, nothing. Thank you,
Yeah,
Amara.
not a thing. I honestly, honest to God, and this is not throwing shade at Williams. I did not know that he was still playing in the league. When I saw that, I was like, I'm sorry, what? Who? And then, I guess like they called him up for the practice squad or something this week. That's what
Uh,
that's it wasn't like he was like part of like the depth chart or something. We missed it. But holy cow, like what a just major whiff there. And it wasn't just like us. Like I feel a little bit vindicated that he was literally on everybody's waiver articles. I did a Google search for him just to like when I was, putting together the show sheet. And I mean, he came up on so many different waiver articles. At the end of the day, if you started him like I did in a couple places, you ended up with 2 attempts for 11 yards, 1 reception for 6 yards. Not what you were looking for at all. So I'm going to go with Amari DiMercato as my best. There we go. That's probably what jinxed him. I think I put that in the chat just a little bit ago. Where you and I were over watching our favorite Nate Markham over on Fantasy or Football Diehards with Bob Harris. And I did put that in the chat that I think that I was the one who caused the that complete just implosion.
well, now you just did it again. So maybe now you reversed the jinx.
Yes.
However, now nobody's going to be playing him after last week. It's not all those fantasy points are going to go for naught. Thanks again.
All right. So by Mageddon, by Apocalypse, have you heard any other fun names for this week?
Bye bye to your playoff chances. I have no idea. Like it's I don't know. That's a good one, but no, those are the two good ones right there.
So teams that are on a bye this week are the Texans, the Bengals, the Cowboys, the Jets, the Titans, and the Panthers, which means they can't lose this week. So there is that. So good for them. I want you, Jorge, to give me a player that you were looking to pick up off of waivers this week to replace somebody that is potentially injured or maybe out on a bye. Who is the guy that you were looking for before you get started? What's up, Nate? We see you in the chat. You are also one of our favorite people.
Indeed. And of course, you can catch Nate and myself in Hollywood at 10 p.m. Eastern on Shoot the Gap, our IDP fantasy football show. But to get to your question, I'm going to talk about a Denver Broncos running back. No, not Javonte Williams. No, not Samaje Perine. I'm picking up Jaleel McLaughlin versus Green Bay. Per Fantasy Pros, Green Bay is allowing the fourth most half PPR fantasy points to the running back position. Chances are, after last week's low rushing volume and his 5.2 fantasy point performance, people probably, might have dropped him. And he could be available, and it's a really good matchup. And it's crazy to think that out of all the running backs in Denver, he has been the most productive. Granted, not by much, but he's been the most productive. He's getting you the receiving yards. He's getting you the touchdowns. He's getting you those looks when Russell Wilson needs to dump the ball off. I mean, this is where they're going, and it sucks if you're the Javonte Williams manager who bought into the August hype of like, oh my God, well, he's looking good. He's going to have no limitations. Well, no, he looks pretty limited. Samaje Perine, he's going to be that receiving back. He's going to be just like he was in Cincinnati. Well, no, he looks like he sucks. Everybody sucks except for Jaleel McLaughlin in the past couple of weeks. And yes, he had a bad week in week 6, but again, given the matchup versus Green Bay and, with the running back injuries piling up and by Mageddon, as you mentioned, I think he's somebody that I'd be really excited to have. I have to start him in one league, and I don't really feel like that's a bad thing.
Let me ask you real quick. So I have a couple questions. They both involve Samaje Perine. First one, can you drop him? And two, how pissed do you think he is? Because he was going to go back to the Bengals, and then Sean Payton called him up, lures him out to Denver, with all these promises like, oh, you know how I use 2 running backs in my system. And look what has happened. It has not been pretty. So that's what I was just kind of thinking about this week. I was like, man, I wonder if Samaje is regretting his life choices at this point.
Yeah, it's like, oh my God, you'll be Mark Ingram 2.0. And it's like, no, not so much.
Like
And,
March of 2023, more like.
yeah, yeah, he's probably hating life a little bit right now.
Yeah. Can you drop him? Is he droppable at this point?
I'd rather roster McLaughlin, who's shown some productivity, than P. Ryan hoping for the productivity.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So my player that I think you should be going to get, and like I said, I promised more Craig Reynolds content, and here it is. You may want to monitor the injury report though, because I did see today that he did pop up on the injury report. So kind of keep that in mind. As we're going along throughout the week and just kind of like watching for updates with that. He's rostered in 26% of sleeper leagues. Obviously, we know David Montgomery is out for the time being. We don't know when that's going to be, when his return is going to happen. Reynolds is going to be the guy in there with Gibbs, and that's assuming that Gibbs plays on Sunday. It looks like he's trending towards playing. Hopefully he does. I know all of us out there that drafted him in Dynasty and redraft as high as we did really want him out there. But they've not used Gibbs as a bell cow so far, so why would they start now? I mean, he's probably going to be pretty limited. So I think you can kind of rest assured that if Craig Reynolds is going out there and he's healthy, he's going to be a part of that offense, which is pretty high volume. They've racked up so far this season 744 yards, 9 touchdowns. And right now they are 7th overall as far as their rushing yards go. They're 5-1 going into this week. They're playing Baltimore. Baltimore is much tougher against the pass than they are against the run. So like I said, if you're out there, you're looking for somebody to replace as far as running backs go, Craig Reynolds could definitely be a guy that you might want to look to. And just a vibes check here. Again, going back to the TikTok, I saw a TikTok this week that was a coaches meeting from Detroit. I don't know how long ago it was, but they were basically talking about Craig Reynolds. And I think they were actually at this point, like it sounded like they were deciding, like, do we cut this player? Do we not cut this player? And basically all the coaches around the table were saying, this guy represents who we are. Like, if you cut him, you're going to have linemen knocking on your door, asking you questions, like, what's going on? They love this guy there in Detroit. So, beloved guy on the team, has great opportunity. So definitely somebody that you may want to be looking at to replace some injuries or some bye week guys. So, yeah. Absolutely. All right, Gator, thank you very much. Hit that subscribe button. We like to see that. Gator has a question. Is Gibbs younger than Swift in Detroit? He means injuries and hype for fantasy. Is he younger? I would think so, right?
Let me look it up while we're Oh, man. Gibbs is, I would assume that he is younger. Yeah, Gibbs is 21. Swift is
25, 24, 25?
24. So yes, he's younger. I don't know why we wouldn't think immediately right off the cuff. Of course, he's younger because he's a rookie.
So is Stetson Bennett.
Touche. Which, by the way, I don't know. I'm not going to bring it up like the details, but I've heard details as to why he is separated from the team. And I hope Stetson Bennett gets the help that he needs, because that's not a story. Yeah. We'll talk about that later. But yeah, just shout out to Stetson Bennett. We're thinking about you. Yeah. But anywho, I digress.
Yeah. All right. So this week, well, not this week, right now, actually, I want us to look into our crystal balls and tell me a player who you think is going to be due for a big week this week. Let's end on a high note.
Yes, let's do that. Yeah. So Drew Scott, who you can catch on Fourth and Frames, our next show right after this at 9 p.m. Eastern. He has been championing. There we go, for this player for the past few weeks now. I want to say since the beginning of the season. And I have actually been one of the people who've been like, hey, he's done nothing. I'm not seeing anything. I don't care. Blah, 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 blah. Well, now I'm drinking the Kool-Aid, jumping on the bandwagon, whatever expression you want to use to describe this. I think you're about to see the breakout of breakouts of Rashee Rice in a big way versus the Chargers. According to PFF, he is the 11th best rated slot wide receiver this season and should see a cornerback matchup with Jasir Taylor, who on the season is allowing the 4th most receiving yards to the slot wide receiver position and the 10th most yards after the catch. This should be like, let me be cliche and call it's a shootout type of game. And we know Kelsey's going to get his. We know Pacheco will get some involvement in the running game. But we saw it last week, and we saw it the week before. Rashee Rice really starting to develop that connection with Patrick Mahomes, and given what should be a high over under for this game, I think the coming out party is going to be in full swing this week.
Nice. Yeah. Rashee Rice was not somebody that I was super high on going into the season. Just, I was like, well, Andy Reid doesn't really use his rookie receivers that much. And, and I think he's kind of definitely proven us all a little bit wrong there. Chris says, Jorge the Plug God, look at you. Preston says that I think that's supposed to be Jahan or Yahan, as our favorite Bill likes to say. His week, he's going to do it, Jorge. Jorge, is that right? Do we have some hope for Jahan Dotson?
To be perfectly honest with you, the wide receiver 2 for the Washington Commanders is not Jahan Dotson or Jahan Dotson. It's Curtis Samuel. We saw an opportunity that Dotson had against Atlanta from Sam Howell, completely missed it. Like I don't know what it is about what's going on with this passing game, but they're not trusting Jahan or Jahan Dotson to make plays. They're trusting Curtis Samuel and Terry McLaurin.
It's so upsetting. He was like a flag plant guy that I had earlier this year. Like I was so high on Dotson as a player. Nate just popping on in here, wanting to do a trade evaluation. I have a feeling that this may have something to do with a trade that went down in our Fantasy and Frames group Dynasty League earlier today. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's what this is. So this is for the PPR league, guys. Mahomes, Keenan Allen, Ramondre for Stroud, Fields, Nico, and a 2025 second or third. Is it second and third or second or third? How do you
second and third? Second and third.
Second and third. Okay. All right. So Jorge, who did you? No, you gave away Mahomes, didn't you?
I gave away Mahomes, Allen, and Ramondre. Yeah.
Okay. All right. And you got Stroud, Fields, and Nico. And you didn't hang on to Stroud too long because you and I did a little trade here just right before we got started. And you unloaded Mr. Stroud to my roster.
Yeah. So let this be a lesson to a lot of you dynasty managers out there. You're always in a rebuild in some way or the other. Maybe some to an extreme. Maybe addressing one position on your roster. If you are not in contention, though, you need to constantly be making your team better. And I was examining my roster. What I care about at this point is, draft picks, rebuilding. So I went there was a plethora of trades I made today. I got rid of CJ Stroud. I got rid of Mahomes, Keenan Allen, Ramondre. I got rid of Chris Olave, Carl Granderson for those in IDP circles. And I went from not having any picks until the 4th round of 2024 to now having 2 firsts, 3 seconds, and a third in 2024. So I have fully committed to the rebuild. And so unless there's, if like I said, if you're not in contention, then start from the ground up and utilize your assets the best way you can. And just, do your thing. I personally love the trade because I'm the one who was involved in the trade. But I'm curious to hear rather what you think, Stacey, if that was did I not ask for enough for Mahomes, Allen, and Ramondre? Or now this is also a super flex league, which is why Stroud and Fields were thrown into the mix here. Curious to hear your thoughts.
I mean, at first you kind of balk at Mahomes, right at first, because oh God, I'm trading Mahomes. I don't hate it, especially since it worked out for me there to get Stroud a little bit later. I don't hate this and the dynasty perspective and knowing that you kind of want to get a little bit younger and like you said, to go into that rebuild. You did take 2 of my next year picks. So you are definitely going to be do you have all the first round picks for next year yet? Or are you collecting all of them?
I'm trying to get my Infinity Gauntlet of first round picks going. So that's what's going on. Secrets out. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Well, I thank you for that, Nate, because now I have Tua and Stroud as my quarterbacks in that league. So appreciate you very much. Now, if I can go find whoever has Tank Dell and try to get him and then I can have the little Stroud Dell stack there. All right, guys, last but not least, my little crystal ball here says that you should be playing whatever running back is playing Carolina this week, but they're on a bye. So that's going to have to wait until next week. But in the meantime, this week, speaking of that San Francisco game, I know we talked about McCaffrey a little bit earlier. My crystal ball says that Ayuk and George Kittle are probably in for a pretty nice little game here. San Francisco's coming off a loss. They're probably going to be playing a little angry there, a little bit of an edge. If CMC is out, you're looking at Jordan Mason, potentially an Eli Mitchell, a little banged up there. That doesn't really look great, right? Debo's also a little bit hurt. The Vikings, that's who they're playing Monday night. Vikings are giving up an average of 34 points per game to opposing teams of wide receivers and 15 points per game to their tight end position. So, if you could get 15 points in a game from your tight end, you're taking that all day, given the horrific landscape that, is the tight end position right now. Especially in this economy, right? Ayuk leads the team in targets, yards, and yards per reception, which is 18.2 for him. Kittle is 6th overall in tight ends and their points per game with, hold on to your horses here, 6.6 points per game. But before you say, wait, that's terrible, it is terrible. But perspective is Travis Kelce leads the pack. Of course he does. With the only tight end who has double digits points per game with 10.5. So keeping that in perspective, we've got Kittle, we've got Ayuk here. I see big things for them on Monday Night Football.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm always going to be Team Ayuk. You could tell me he's facing a team that's giving up a point per game to the position. I'm going to be like, it's okay. Brandon Ayuk, he's got this. We're good.
I've been a fan of Brandon Ayuk since he was a rookie. Just one of my absolute favorite players to watch. Like he's just so much fun and so explosive to watch in San Francisco. Love it. Guys, that is going to do it for us tonight. Like Jorge said earlier, we have got the Fourth and Frames boys. They are on deck, ready to go at 9 o'clock for you guys to stay here on the channel. Make sure that you watch them. Check in at 10. Jorge, Nate, and Hollywood. Is it going to be 3 of you guys tonight? Yep, doing Shoot the Gap. So check them out, 10 o'clock for you IDP guys and gals, out there. You can follow all of us on Twitter. Jorge is at Jorge B. Edwards. I am at Stacey_Perez83. Make sure that you hit subscribe to our Fantasy and Frames channel here if you haven't already. If you have, we appreciate you. We appreciate everybody who's in the chat tonight throwing us questions. Guys, we will see you next week.